We are going to talk about, we're going to get tiny little bit off topic, but I'm going to tie it all back together also. I'm going to talk today about time and money and the relationship between the two, and why time is probably actually your most critical factor toward any type of success, any type of happiness, the pursuit of happiness, peace of mind, all of those good things. So there was a study done, and in that study, it compared time and money. What was found after the study was completed was it was something like a 60-40 split of who valued money and who valued time. And there was more people, of course, that valued money, you would expect that, than valued time. However, they found that through the study that the people who put more of an emphasis on the time in their life were happier people. Um, they also had a healthier perspective on the value of money in their life. They did not treat money as, in other words, as the means, the end to be achieved by any means whatsoever. They saw money in a more healthy, they had more of a healthy perspective on their money, is what I'm trying to say. And so people who valued the time, they were able to tie it back into time with family, dedicating X amount of time to a job. They were better with boundaries. Boundaries and time are very, very correlated. They also were able to remove that obsession with money that is very, very common. So those who valued the time were definitely much, much happier. But it's important to see the similarities and how time and time management, and it all relates to your finances, to your stability, to your security. You can budget your time carefully and deliberately, much as you do with money. So there's that similarity of you're budgeting time, you're budgeting money. We've all heard the phrase that time management, time management. It's a very common phrase in corporate America with professionals. You'll hear that phrase a lot. At least you have, for the past 20 years, I would say. And it's the thing with time management is it's very, very multifaceted. You have to value yourself. You have to also value your time. It helps you find, actually in the long run, a much more rewarding life and career, because a person who values time more than they value money is actually looking for more balance in their life. And that balance is where happiness lies. Whereas having an obsession about something doesn't really lead to much fulfillment. So the key takeaway here is to value yourself and to value your time. And there's actually a good saying out there that you can use your time to make more money, but you can't use your money to make more time. So we should really value it all the time. Previous shows that I've done, I'm going to show the examples of how the money management that we have in our lives, that financial stability and security that we're trying to create in our lives, how it ties back to some of the critical issues that we face as we get older. And actually, if we're like, let's say we're transitioning into a chapter 2 or something like that, all of these things, time probably is your biggest factor in achieving some sort of sanity, keeping some sort of perspective in your life, respecting boundaries. Let's just talk about, some of my previous shows. We talked about, aging parents and the empty nest syndrome, and taking the sandwich generation, how we take care. There are many of us out there in that 55 to 70-year-old, 40 to 70-year-old range that are taking care simultaneously of children, getting them on their feet, maybe older children, young adults, getting them established and on their feet, while also at the same time taking care of their elderly parents or parent, whatever that may be. We also talked about food budgeting in one of our shows, home economics, and the cost savings in preparing your own food and learning that, learning recipes, for instance, versus going out to eat all the time. And there's definitely, cost saving. Time management is very, very involved in that. Also, the creation of good debt versus bad debt. Much of that can have to do with, how you prioritize and where you see your money going, not only now, but in the future. So that's, and how you see your life playing out now and in the future. All of those things involve time and putting money in its proper perspective, to make a balance between the two. So with aging parents, for instance, you might say, so how do any of those things tie into today's topic, time versus money? When I initially was going to call the show, proper perspectives on money, or proper perspectives on, time and money, or keeping the proper focus on money. But then I realized that the whole theory of time and time management is so much larger than just anything to do with only money. It's just one facet of money and finances. So, let's talk about the aging parents, and being a caregiver, for instance, and how that is incredibly stressful for people who are just burning the candle at both ends, never finding time, there's that word again, time, for themselves. And they're balancing their own family, their own happiness, their own time, their own peace of mind, with taking care of so many things, taking care of multi-generational households very often. It requires major time management skills to be able to do that. It has a dramatic effect on your finances, depending on how you're able to prioritize those decisions. I can give my own personal example of how I needed to learn how to manage time and the important role time plays. When I was getting ready to move my mom, because she lost her license and she could no longer drive, and she had to leave where she was living because she needed a place that was all inclusive, that had like entertainment, that had, activities and all that. Now this was pre-COVID, so this year has been, just off the charts, an exception in every way possible. However, I had to find the time to be able to transition the care I was providing for her with also being able to sell her condo, and being able to figure out, well, so, when is the right time to tackle this? I'm also working full time. Is there enough time in the evenings? Is there enough time on the weekends? There was a lot to do. There was like switching doctors around. There was like making sure all of that stuff was settled. There was selling her car, which she had no use for anymore. There was getting the condo ready to sell, and that was a big, big undertaking of responsibility. And I realized through that all how important managing your time is to really to being an effective person, and balancing and multitasking, and how they all relate. Because I had to decide, I had to prioritize, for instance, what are the things in this condo that are must fixes, and what are the nice to fixes. Okay, what are the things that a potential buyer will want to buy? What are the things that don't matter so much to a future buyer? And is the condo, ready to sell? So this is just one small example of how transitions in life and these issues that we face, especially as we're transitioning maybe out of the workforce, or we're in that 40 to 60 sandwich generation age, we realize how important the ability to prioritize is as we move forward through these things. So it requires major time management skills. So it was about making time for the repairs, making time for meeting with repair people, um, installers, carpet installers, anything like that. It was all a balancing act. It was all a time management act. And a lot of that is similar to what we deal with in our life, in our careers, in our pursuit of goals, in our pursuit of financial stability, of being able to provide for our families, being able to provide for ourselves, being able to own assets, being able to create a home, and all of those things. They all relate back to time management. Because you're devoting time to a job. Let's face it, it's very hard to do any of this without also having a job. So I don't know if previous generations faced this issue as much as we do today, or why it's more prevalent today, but it seems like the need to learn how to multitask is just absolutely front and center today. I don't know how you can get through life, honestly, in today's world, because it seems like we're just very busy, and we're all juggling a ton of things. And I'm not 100% sure why that is. I don't remember if it was like that when I was a kid. Maybe my parents were dealing with the same thing, and the adults around me were dealing with the same thing, and I just wasn't aware of it. Maybe that's possible. But I will say that in today's world, learning to do more than one thing at a time is actually a critical skill to have. It relates to combining tasks, being able to multitask. It also teaches you the critical skill of innovation. And what is innovation? So innovation can be defined, it's actually a form of leadership, because there's innovative leadership, where you're able to find solutions in traditional ways, and you're also able to find solutions in what I would call out of the box ways. For that, one of my favorite corporate phrases ever, not. But anyway, it's actually very true though, because when you are looking for innovative solutions to figure life's problems out, you can't only rely on tried and true measures. Sometimes you have to think a little bit outside the box. And so what time management and multitasking teaches you is it teaches you innovative approaches. And that innovative approach is going to be critical in managing your family time, bringing it all back full circle so you have time for yourself, and also having that time to move forward in your life and create goals. All of that relates back to innovation. We often look at people and we say, that was my idea, I could have done that. But what we really have to realize is, that ideas are a dime a dozen, but it's that innovation, it's that time management, it's putting in that time, okay, that gets you to that successful end game, whatever success means for you. I can guarantee you one thing: it's going to require an input of time. To just look at people and think that, in the overwhelming majority of cases, things were not just handed to people. In the overwhelming majority of cases, there are cases where people had a great head start, and yes, they may have had a great inheritance or something like that, or they got a lucky break. But I can guarantee you that if they didn't harness their hard work, and they didn't harness their time management and their perseverance at that moment that they received that gift in life, their success would have gone right out the window. Because we've all heard of people who win the lotto. We've all heard of that. And a year later, 5 years later, they're filing bankruptcy. So if you see money as the end and as the only end, you're not setting yourself up for success. Because the really key driver in life should be purpose, and time plays the value in finding that purpose. Because put the time in to achieve the purpose, and the money will fall into place, and find the enjoyment in that in that daily job that you have that you probably think you hate, many of you. But if you actually look for the things that you enjoy about your job, that there's attributes in just about every job that you could say like, oh, you know, I really like this. I like the people aspect of it. I like the computer aspect of it. You know, I like the organization aspect of it, or I'm a real detail person, so I love the detail and the numbers aspect of it. There's always something in a job that you can find to make it more interesting. But I'm getting a little bit off off topic there. But the good time management really does go hand in hand with learning good prioritization skills. Um, let's talk about what makes you innovative. So what makes a person innovative is being able to see a problem and also envision how your customer or your client is perceiving that problem. So that's how innovation and time management and prioritization of time all play a role in whether you're trying to start a small business, whether you're trying to impress your coworkers and your boss for maybe that next promotion. But innovating solutions is probably one of the biggest attributes that you can bring to any career, any job. Um, it means that you not only see the obvious, but you use your insight and your intuition to see oftentimes what others don't see. So that's all part of innovation. Innovation means that you understand the tactical and the detail and the complexities of all of that, but you also see the bigger picture and you see how whatever you're doing today is going to affect the future outcome, how those solutions that you find are going to play out. You know, how are you going to monitor those solutions? You know, what steps are you going to take to get to those solutions? And you're going to innovate along the way. You know, innovation, being innovative also means things don't always play out exactly the way we envisioned them. And so we kind of have to, as much as you may want to be organized and you may want to be a planner, and those are great attributes to have, those are great qualities to have in any career, whether you're working for a company or whether you're self-employed, those are great qualities to have. But you also want to be able to roll with the punches. You also want to be able to innovate as you go. And any type of project or life in general, even nothing goes 100% according to plan. You can be the world's best not planner, the world's best planner, and you will find that things do not roll out smoothly. Okay, there's always going to be a hitch, you know, somewhere along the line. So you have to be able to roll with the punches. A lot of times that can mean, you know, you have to adjust your plan. It can mean, you know, that you have some kind of a stopgap measure along the way there where you roll into like a plan B, or you have a plan C. If the plan A and plan B don't work, you need a plan C. So all of that ties hand in hand with innovation. And being able to problem solve is one of the biggest skills that you can bring to an organization. It's one of the biggest skills in a family. It's one of the biggest skills in a job, trying to start your own business. All of that innovative leadership will set you apart from the crowd. And when an employer or a client sees you as a problem solver, they're going to realize your value. And when you realize your value, they realize your value. And all of that ties in with time management, innovation, and prioritization. They all tie in together. So how exactly then does it tie into your money, your career, your finances, your happiness, your peace of mind, mindfulness with the dollar signs? You know, we're all trying to achieve that balance, I think. I think most of us really, either consciously or subconsciously, we really do want that balance where we have, you know, where we're able to, you know, keep the ball rolling and keep a happy family life, keep a happy work life, not spend too much money, not save too much money at the exclusion of happiness, and, any avoiding extreme behavior, living in moderation. You can still have a zest for fun and happiness and live in moderation. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. And I think that's a mindset that we kind of need to lose. You can achieve a lot of those things there and keep the balance in your life. It's possible. So how exactly then does it tie into your money? So for instance, managing your money, managing your personal finances. Did you take the time to learn about what you're invested in? Did you take the time to learn what tax deferred vehicles are? None of this stuff is exclusive knowledge that's only known by a few people. In today's information age, all of this knowledge is readily accessible through the internet. I would recommend you go to reliable sources, obviously, like big banks, Investopedia, things like that, that are reliable sources to find out, So have you taken the time to learn about money? Have you taken the time to learn about the stock market? 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I knew very, very, very little about the stock market. I would have never thought, about buying or selling a stock of my own, or buying or selling a mutual fund. When I was in my 20s, I probably didn't even know the difference between a mutual fund and a stock. But those are the basics. What's a bond? What is a real estate investment trust, otherwise known as a REIT? What are municipal bonds? What are corporate bonds? What are government bonds? What do they pay? In what environments are they good? In what environments are they bad? How does the Fed affect your investments? That's a good question to ponder. You could Google that later today. You'll be surprised. The Fed is one of the biggest determinants of how our investments do. It can really have a big effect. It's not the only one. A lot of people think that the president, whoever that president may be, is the one that solely makes the stock market go up or solely makes the stock market go down. And that's completely untrue. There's an indirect relationship, absolutely. However, the stock market is not ruled by any one person. It's not. It's just a fact. And you can Google that as well. So what I'm really saying is, time factors into learning how to manage money. It absolutely does. That's just one thing. So what else does time factor into? It factors into our career. So have you taken the time to learn new skills? Have you taken the time to sit down and have a conversation with your boss, with your leader, and say what your goals are, and sell yourself? Take the time to learn how to sell yourself. It's not all about writing a pretty resume anymore. Written resumes are great, but you also need to know how to verbally communicate your value to a client, to a boss, to any kind of leader. You need to be able to communicate that. So time and how you've managed that time to grow, let's say, your skill set factors in. So I think what we're getting at here, if you probably are getting the picture by now, that time is a much, much bigger and much more important factor than money. It's almost like money is a subset of time. So the time and the time management and those skills you acquire through the proper usage of time will, if you're playing your cards correctly, lead you down that money path where money won't be an issue. It's just, I know there's a lot going on in the world, especially this year, that is out of our control. And those instances are very unfortunate. There is suffering going on out there right now. There really is. And, so nothing that I'm saying should ever be interpreted like it's any kind of a blame game or anything like that at all. Because there are instances in life, unfortunately, where you can do absolutely everything correctly. okay, and bad stuff still happens, so it's not an absolute fail safe. The way I personally view it, though, is it's about trying to hedge your bets and trying to make where you have it goes back to, control what you can control. And that's what it goes back to. We can't control everything, unfortunately, but it's about making the smartest decisions on the items that you can control. And that covers a lot. Doesn't cover everything, but it covers a lot. So none of us could have planned or controlled how this coronavirus would take off this year. So that's one of the uncontrollable things. But I'm drawn back to the and I just realized right now that I've got the Spirit Focus with Robert Painley logo on today. I have no idea how I did that. But anyway, I could have changed it, but I think everybody realizes by now that I'm not talking about spirit. So this is Mindfulness with Mark Bianchi. I'm hoping that my restream information came up correctly. I believe I did that part correct. I can't believe I've been looking at this whole time and just realized it now. Anyway, oh boy. So our career. So the time, yeah, this year with coronavirus, you could be the world's best planner, and this year, would throw you off kilter. This year, this year has destroyed the most organized, the smartest, the most judicious, the most prudent people out there. This year has just done a number on. So, there's no accounting for this year. We can only hope that 2021 is a step in the right direction and get that things start to get better. But yeah, so I was going back to that serenity prayer about grant me the wisdom to learn what I can control and the wisdom to know the difference. I know I botched that up, but that's the general gist of that prayer. It's very, very true. Very often in corporate America, I always heard the phrase like, try to control what you can control. And it's really true because, it's extremely frustrating to get hung up on the things in life that you can't control. There are a lot of things that you have control over, and it's about, and like with today's show, really the balance of time and money and time management and the key role that all plays. What it really comes down to, it's about just trying to make the best decisions that you can make. Your finances, that's another thing, and money and the finances goes hand in hand. But when I think of money, I think of something, I think of finances as different than money. To me, finances includes a lot of what my show is about, and that is, how do you manage the money that you make? How do you manage the money that you spend? Are you budgeted? Do you follow a strict budget? I never followed a strict budget. My budget was kind of always up in my head. So I'm one of those people that one of my skills, useless skill, is I'm a great guesstimator. Has no value in the workforce or whatever, but I find that when I guesstimate something, I'm pretty darn accurate. And I don't know why that is. Like I can even measure a recipe and pour, and if it calls for like a quarter of a cup or a third of a cup of water or milk in the recipe, and I'll pour it into a glass. And then to test myself, I'll pour that into the measuring cup. And I got it pretty much just right. So yeah, so that guesstimation is a good skill that I have. So I don't know how many, great guesstimators we have out there. But being able to guesstimate pretty well or accurately, if you want to do it, and a lot of us are tactile and visual, and we like to see things written out. So having a budget, having one at the very least up in your head, so like where your money is going, and how you're budgeting your money and your time management, through all of that all ties into your finances. It also ties into your happiness, your overall happiness. Realizing that, making time for your career, making time for your family and what makes you happy, and yourself, making time for yourself is just as important as making time for your career. And we spend so much of our week, so much of our lives, you know, in a work setting. We have to realize that balance, work-life balance, is a lot about time management. It's crucially about time management and the skills obtained through that. And how that all plays out is just critical to our happiness. So, are you able to find that passion in what you do? Like I said earlier, our overall job that we have, or our overall career, it may not excite us. There may not be every single thing about that job or that career that excites us, but can you find? I'd be hard pressed to say that most jobs out there don't have some redeeming qualities to them that you can find, that you can focus in on to find your happiness. So that time management, that time perspective, that money perspective, it all plays a role. It all ties together. I also alluded to this before: success. However you define it, however you define success, requires a time investment. So with very few exceptions out there, the people that you see who are successful, who are happy because they're doing something that they love, that has all required a time investment. Don't fool yourself into thinking that it just was handed to most people, because it wasn't. Most of the successful people that you see, they put in the hard work and they put in the time. It didn't just happen. You also have to realize the importance of goals. So this entire discussion of time management and time prioritization would mean nothing without discussing goals. So there's a reason that you often are asked in interviews, where do you see yourself in 90 days? What is your 1-year plan? They may have gotten away from that in recent years because, HR and HR tactics and verbiage is always changing. It's always trying to be more innovative. It's always trying to flow with the times and whatever. But those basic tenets, though, of having, a 1-year plan, a 90-day plan if you're brand new to a job, or a 90-day plan if you're just opening up a business, or having a 1-year plan or a 5-year plan, taking the time to create a business plan. So time and planning and having goals is critical. And whenever you have goals, are you taking the time to measure those goals? What is where do you expect to see your business? Or where do you expect to see your career 1 year from now, 5 years from now? Most good discussions that you're ever going to have with your leader, they're going to involve an aspect of time. It's going to be time management. It's going to be, how do you prioritize your time? Do you reach your goals? Do you struggle to attain your goals? Or do you blow away your goals? And this not only on a work level, it can be personal goals. Did you want to learn a new hobby this year that you've always wanted to learn? Did you always want to learn how to draw and take an art class? It could be something as simple as that. So it doesn't have to only be about, job related or career related or business related. It can also be about personal, and taking the time to realize that, life can be fulfilling. The more balance that you have, the more moderation that you have out there, the more likely you are to attain those business goals and those personal goals. So take the time to get there, and take the time to realize that, it can all be achieved. It's hard to say, that we can achieve everything that we want, but we can certainly make what we do achieve, worthwhile and valuable. And a lot of that goal setting with the time prioritization involves creating, goals that are realistic, and that's why, in a lot of coaching, the monitoring and the measuring is against baby step type goals, almost, I would say almost daily goals. Today I'm going to start buying cheaper gasoline. I don't know. That was a bad example. But, it's about making, it's about making those baby steps. Today I'm going to start clipping coupons. It's little goals lead to bigger goals. And seeing how that continuum plays out is critical toward success when it comes to being successful and happy. Happiness and success go hand in hand. Having that financial stability, having that financial security. You'll find that those successful people are kind of disciplined when it comes to, time management, money management, all of those things. There is such a thing as becoming too rigid and too much of a rule book follower, that you lose all that spontaneity, that you lose all that sense of fun. But what you will find, though, is that setting realistic, measurable goals, and starting, think about the big picture again, like we talked about earlier. There are daily goals, there are 1 month goals, 1 year goals, 5-year goals. And then there's like, where do I see myself 25 or 30 years from now? What do you envision maybe your retirement looking like? And how do I get there? And what are the baby steps to getting there? You may decide another baby step might be, well, today I'm going to go to my company's website and I'm going to learn all about our 401k matching plan that we have, because our company matches, 3%, 5%, 6%, whatever that might be. And I'm currently not taking advantage of that. So within the next 30 days, I want to make sure I'm contributing to my 401k. That's just an example of any one goal out there that you could have. So having those short-term goals, it's easy to see how that short-term 1-day goal, today I'm going to do this, or today I'm going to learn about this. You could just learn about it today. And then tomorrow you can actually take steps to actually achieve that. It all starts, though, with reading and learning about it. And so taking those steps, though, in the right direction, both short-term and long-term, are what are going to lead to your long-term success and feeling of fulfillment, feeling of purpose. And when you're financially successful, don't forget, you also have more free time. The more financially successful that you become, the more prudent you are with where your money goes, and driving that car till the wheels fall off, and then throwing all that extra car payment would be car payment money into a mutual fund with your work or something like that. That all pays off in the long run, or it should. We could always have a catastrophe, like a meteor hitting the earth or something like that could happen, where the best laid plans that everybody has made go right out the window. Okay, but we're talking about normal circumstances here. Okay, we're not talking about COVID years or things like that, but under normal circumstances, well thought out plans that you make today, that you make in the next few months, over the next year or 5 years, especially if you're younger, especially if you're, if my overriding message out there to people would be that, learn from my mistakes. Don't wait until you're in your mid 30s or late 30s. I'm glad I learned when I did, but I wish I had learned 10 years earlier or 15 years earlier. There are people who do. There are people who are 18 years old that know exactly what they want to do for the rest of their lives. I envy those people. I was never one of those. But for me, it was like a constant growth. It's still constant growth, trying to figure stuff out. But one of the things I'm proud of myself, though, is I have learned along the way. I've learned like what red flags are. I've learned like what to do, what not to do. I'm glad I started to become interested in success and financial security when I did, in my mid 30s, because the younger you are, the more critical it is to get started as early as possible, because time, once again, is the biggest factor in your investments. It absolutely is. They've done studies out there, statistics of people who try to play catch up by making really huge contributions to a 401k or IRAs in their late 50s, early 60s. And they've compared the financial stock portfolio or whatever financial portfolio outcomes of those people with people who started investing at 22 or 23 years old and invested that much more modest amounts of money regularly over time, per, let's say like every 2 weeks through a paycheck, through a 401k at work. Those people, the younger people who invested modest amounts over 40 years fared better than the people, their portfolios fared better in the long run than those people who jam-packed it all into 7 years or 5 years or 3 years, tried to play catch up. Because one of the things you're doing when you're doing it over a longer haul like that is you're taking true advantage of the benefits of dollar cost averaging, which means that you're really buying on highs, you're buying on lows, you're buying on the middle, you're buying at the top, you're buying at the way bottom, you're buying during a crash, you're buying through all those times. When you limit it to a much shorter period of time, you might be buying during this time when the stock market's doing this, and you're doing all your buying way up here. And the higher it goes, how much higher can it go? You know, but when you've done it over 40 years, think about it right now. 40 years ago, what was the stock market at? 2,000, 3,000, lower, something like that. It closed at 30,000 yesterday. You know, 12 years ago, what was the stock market at? About 7,000. So it's quadrupled, basically, more than quadrupled where it was in 2008, right at the real estate crash. So, you know, if you just look at that short time period, you know, it's like you can see that dollar cost averaging, investing at a younger age is going to benefit you because things go up, they go down, they stay in the middle, they go flat. You know, but if you're doing it over a longer period of time, you're taking advantage of it. You're buying on as many dips, most likely, as you are on the skyrocketing times. So that all plays into having measurable goals that are achievable, starting with those baby steps. We've all heard that word, that phrase a million times, baby steps. And it's true. None of us are gonna, Rome wasn't built in a day. You know, we're not going to get where we want to get in one day. And we tend to be a society that wants instant gratification. We want instantaneousness. We've become hung up on instantaneousness because we think we deserve it instantly. That's not how it works. Ask the hardest working, most successful people out there how much they got instantly in their lives. And, you know, if they're being honest with you, they'll tell you that very little, if any of it, came instantly. It requires the dedication and the perseverance of time. So with that, I would like to wrap up today's show. I want to thank you for joining me on Mindfulness with Mark Bianchi, not Spirit Focus with Robert Painley, as the moniker says up there. But I'm very happy that you joined today. And I'm on every 2 weeks on the Enlightened World Network and Enlightened Living channels every second Wednesday at noon. And I'm happy you joined today. I hope you got something out of this. I wasn't 100% sold on today's topic when I started to think about it. And then the more I thought about it, the more I thought time is extremely relevant. It's probably the biggest factor because everything boils back down to time. You know, it's constantly there, you know. There are a lot of things that aren't there, some things that are there, but time is always a factor there. And with that, I would like to thank you for joining, and I will see you 2 Wednesdays from now at noon. I can be contacted at financial.coach.mark@gmail.com. It's in the body of the posts on the Enlightened World Network and the Enlightened Living channels. You can see my contact information right there. And I will see you 2 weeks from now at the same time. Bye-bye. Take care.